Hello and welcome to India This Morning. I am Shreya Ghosh. Joining me today is National Award winning editor Anadi Athaley. He has graduated from the Film and Television Institute of India. He was a theatre practitioner and was quite active in graphic designing. And currently, he's making, editing, producing short films. In the past, he has worked with Samarth Mahajan in the film Borderlands and Unreserved Borderlands, which won the national awards in the year 2022 for best editing in the non-feature films category. He has also made Kazwa, A Million Lanterns, and edited short films like The Detour, starring Shayani Gupta and Vikrant Masse.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to talk to you.
You've passed out from FTII. So could you just tell me your journey, from being a student to being a national award winning editor and now a producer? So how viscerally has FTII impacted you and has helped you develop your own style and vision over the years?
Basically, FTI for me was a place where I started to formally learn something which I had deep interest in. The most important thing I think is the film screening that happens every day. We watch a film which is either from a master of world cinema or from a master of Indian cinema. And at 9 p.m., we used to have another screening where we would watch contemporary films which are either being made in different film schools across the country or across the world. I think that is what I think formed the base for me, at least.
Could you tell me what is the difference, editing for a non-fiction film and a fiction film?
I think when it comes to non-fiction, uh, the edit process begins from scratch because there's a lot of things because the filmmaker doesn't know what's going to happen. And when you receive the footage, when you receive the material that they've shot, that is the first time you start to see how it's developing, how it's starting to make sense. So I think the biggest difference is that there is no script. So all the things that a writer has to do in a fiction series, that gets combined for an editor's role. So also have to make sure that the narrative is being formed first, and then it's making sense and it's also engaging. And also at the same time try and understand what the director was trying to do.
So, Werner Herzog, a famous documentary filmmaker, he talks about this thing called cinematic truth. Like, through editing, through stylization of the material that you have, you can show something which is truer than what it actually is.
Yeah.
So do you keep all these things in mind? Like, how do you strike a balance between like the facts that you have, the factual material that you have, with the whole stylization, the vision of the filmmaker?
It's a very nice thing that you yourself have also. Basically, Herzog, when he says cinematic truths, I don't think anything, whether it's fiction, non-fiction, whether you shoot something, nothing will be a pure truth. So cinematic truth is something that is the best thing that we have. The truth is something that we begin to also explore. With Samarth, when I'm editing a film, we have some ground rules that we put into before we start the edit. Maybe certain information that they themselves have shared with us maybe should not be shared because of the context of our film. So at some point we also hide certain information to protect the dignity of the person, of the protagonist we are talking about. So we try and make sure that the filmmaker somehow enters the film as well. So we are not in some way pretending that we this is the pure objective truth. It's not, and we don't want to pretend to show you that we never manipulated anything, because the fact that there was a camera present and we were interviewing someone, obviously we are manipulating the truth.
It's a very like participatory type of documentary. Talking about your whole camaraderie with Samarth Mahajan, because you have worked together in two of your films, and I've noticed one thing that his both these films are very like focused on personal stories, and I've spoken to him also personally. He says that instead of making a documentary like a pretentiously political film, I like to focus on personal stories. So, what is your take on this? Were you both like on the same page about it? Did you ever have conflict of ideas and all? When you were working?
As far as this is concerned, we, I think, were on the same page, because I personally also, I also bring my own personal biases into the film. That we both like to watch some stuff which allow us as viewers to make our own, conclusions, judge the film on our own accord. And I think that is what we also like to give to the viewer. Something which Samat is very deeply convinced that should be in the film, and I'm very deeply convinced that it should not be. Those things happen, and then we discuss it out, and we eventually it goes one way or the other.
Right. But also, since we're talking about, making political films, I mean, you do realize that we are living in a very politically volatile country right now, okay? And
Yeah.
documentaries, we feel like, that is a mode of expression where we can sort of, hold a mirror to the society and show the truth, whatever, like however subjective it is of the, filmmaker. But so don't you think that there should be more political documentaries?
See, if you see Borderlands as well, we are obviously not being overtly political, but it is political. Political films, or for that matter, politics, is very much part of your life. It's part of every small personal details that we have. It's part of how we dress. It's part of what we eat, yeah, as you would know. How do we approach politics? And shouldn't it be an approachable subject? Shouldn't it be inclusive in that sense? Asking you to change your politics, but I'm asking you to listen to this story, and I want to show you the perspective I want to show you. You can make whatever of it, and I believe that engage in a dialogue, even if they are on the opposite side of the political spectrum.
We have these Oscar-nominated documentaries this year, like The Elephant Whisperers and All That Breathes by Shaunak Sen. But we're not like recently in an interview, Anurag Kashyap mentions that these films are not being celebrated as much as they should.
I think there are several problems. I think the first is, of course, the access, and the fir- the second thing is, especially what happens in a documentary, especially a film, let's say made in India, like Borderlands, for that matter, is the fact that because it's not scripted, because it's not. It doesn't have a language constraint. So the film is in 5 languages. And we then have subtitles, which essentially are in English. That itself really restricts the audience. And documentaries are becoming a little more, so to say, popular. Thanks to unfortunately the true crime genre.
Do you like use one particular software for all your films, or like do you use different softwares for editing usually?
Currently, I prefer Premiere.
How do you get ideas? Like, where does it start from? Do you watch the news? Do you read a lot? Do you listen to good music? Like, what, gets you thinking about stuff?
Watch a lot of news. I watch a lot of documentaries. I watch a lot of uh, nowadays comedy, which suddenly has become very political and is also funny. So across the world, and not
You just name any of your favorite stand-up comedians.
my all-time favorite is George Carlin, and because he's just amazing, the wordplay that he does, and it's just amazing. And currently, Trevor Noah is someone I'm really fond of. John Oliver is someone I'm really fond of. Off late, I'm enjoying Samdesh Bhatia a lot.
Makes sense. And some film recommendations, like what are you watching currently? Any?
Last binge watch I did was a series called Wednesday by Tim Burton, and he's my all-time favorite director as well. So very offbeat, interesting series on Hotstar currently called Extraordinary. I really enjoyed watching it. And off late also I've discovered Philomena Kank. Yeah, she's amazing. So
Amazing,
she's
amazing.
currently what I'm following.
Any director, any editor whose work has inspired you?
Burton does that whole handles magic realism very, very nicely. So I love everything he does. Then the second person is Amir Kusturica. He's a Serbian filmmaker. He's made amazing films, and they're the people who've really shaped how I think and how also I would like to edit certain things.
Like you make a film, but then how do you like take it to the festivals? All these seems very like there's this Pandora's box and you don't know anything about it. And how did you like navigate through this whole journey of making the film and sending it to places? How did you like get funding for the film?
Independent filmmaking, especially I do fiction, and that is a tricky space because it will have to play if it's an indie film, and if it's going the festival route, it will have to play certain festivals for it to have a valuation. There's an event called Film Bazaar, Festival, the International Film Festival of India in Goa, And that is, I think, a really good starting point if you want to just understand how independent filmmaking as a business happens. So when I was studying in FTI, there were three directors, and then we decided to make a feature film. And then we went ahead, we shot it at a shoestring budget, and we spent everything, and all of that film somehow got made. It got made, and then we ran out of money by that time. And that was when it got selected in Mami in Mumbai, and it got screened, and then it also got selected in Film Bazaar. That is when we started to understand that making a film and just making it ready for exhibition is only halfway through. And you need to also plan for how the film is going to reach the audience. If it's an indie film and if it's going the festival route, it will have to play certain festivals for it to have a valuation. That was a huge learning as that whole distribution thing is never taught to you.
You think like pursuing a career in the films, especially documentary filmmaking, is feasible?
I think you can definitely do it. It's not an easy path, I would say, for you to reach a place where you're comfortable financially, uh, where you are sort of also not having to do other things to make a living. But it takes time, but it's definitely a doable thing, and I think more people should do it.
So what are you like working on right now? And like, will we see you making like a full form feature film anytime soon?
Can't tell you what I'm working on currently because I'm bound by contract. It's a documentary series that I'm editing currently. Also, we are currently developing a documentary series again, which I'll also be producing.
It was such a lovely and such an insightful interview. Thank you so much, sir, for doing it.
Likewise.
I'm Shreya Ghosh, reporting for India This Morning.